Could you hear that on the battlefield as Jonathan and Saul lay? Oh. You played for your grandfather Mo at his service yesterday at the cemetery. What a gift. Thank you for this. Please pray with me. Holy God, you come to us in story. And so may our meditations upon this story, may the actions of our lives, may these words reflect your word on this day. Amen. This has been a remarkable week in the aftermath of the shooting of the 9 people in Charleston of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. One of those 9 people was their minister, Clementa Pinckney, a 41-year-old father of 2 girls. He'd been hosting a prayer meeting with members of his congregation that morning when they heard a knock on the door. It was a young man, and he was invited in to join the prayer circle. Within minutes, 9 people were dead, including the minister, victims of the young man's hatred. I wonder how many saw Barack Obama's eulogy to the slain minister. Google it, YouTube it, go see it. It was a gripping 30-minute exploration of the concept of grace, which ended in Barack Obama singing Amazing Grace. The black president of the United States of America sang Amazing Grace at a black preacher's funeral. Talk about an historic shift in leadership. Calling for the removal of the Confederate flags and an end to the endless talk about race, with a call to action in what seems to be a direct positive response to what we heard from Jon Stewart last week. Obama moved from being a partisan politician elected on the Democrat ticket nearing the end of his 2nd term to becoming a world statesman who will be highly regarded by history. The President of the United States sang Amazing Grace at a dead preacher's funeral. Did you ever think you would see that in your lifetime? I've had 4 conversations this week with people in varying stages of grief over the death of their parent. In each case, I heard stories of how the parent had been verbally and emotionally abusive, neglectful, self-centered, preoccupied. And in every case, the living child sought to support in grace their abusive parent as that parent prepared to die. One person confessed, even in his father's death, the adult son was trying to earn his father's approval. One person said, as the only child, she put her own feelings on hold while she did what she had to do. All 4 seemed to lay history aside, letting it lay dormant while they attended to the needs of their dying parent. And the President of the United States sang Amazing Grace at a dead preacher's funeral. In the 13 chapters of 1 Samuel we haven't read between this Sunday and last, King Saul is in a love-hate relationship with David since David killed the Philistine. We know him as Goliath. It's been a violent love-hate relationship. As Marion said, in one instance, Saul would find ways to kill David, from throwing spears to sending him into impossible military conflicts where he would surely die. In another instance, Saul would feel heartbreaking remorse and bring David close to him and find ways to protect him. It was crazy. Jonathan, Saul's son, stood with David in many instances, kind of running interference and warning David of the next blow. Crazy. Maybe Saul was crazy. On the other hand, David had many opportunities to take Saul out. There were lots of times when David had the upper hand and could have killed his king. But he didn't. The 13 chapters we didn't read are filled with this escalating rivalry, but it's one-sided, apparently, according to David. And that's how we get to the story that Marion read this morning. And we shake our heads. How is it possible? How is it possible that David could honestly lament the man who kept trying to kill him? How the mighty have fallen. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, nor the sword of Saul return empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely, in life and death they weren't divided. They were swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. Oh, daughters of Israel, weep over Saul. He clothed you with crimson in luxury. He put ornaments of gold on your clothes. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Was this lament real? How could it be? Maybe it was just good politics. Maybe it was just an act of good public relations to build the crowd's trust in David's capacity for loyalty and compassion. He'd be a good king if he cried over the last one. They wouldn't have known necessarily about the many times Saul tried to kill David. Then why did David kill the messenger? Anybody shaking their heads this morning? What was that about? The messenger. One of the Amalekites that Saul was trying to wipe out. Isn't it ironic that he's the one that takes out Saul? The Amalekite thought he was doing a good thing, right? Saul had been mortally wounded in battle. He was going to die anyway. Besides, Saul asked him to kill him. Like shooting a horse with a broken leg. It was an act of compassion. Maybe it was even an act of, well, it became an act of political astuteness, didn't it? When he brought the crown and the armlet and laid it before David, his Lord. None of that mattered to David. David himself had lots of opportunity to kill Saul. He didn't take it. There were moments when Jonathan even encouraged it. David refused. Why? I don't think this was good politics. I don't think David was biding his time, building up his case so that he could become the next heir apparent. It was already set up. I think David killed the messenger because he saw only one thing. The enemy, this Amalekite, killed David's Lord and King. Could it be that David loved Saul in spite of what Saul did? Just like those 4 children who loved their parents, their abusive parents. Where we might think we're talking about life and conflict at a perspective of retribution, could it be that David was operating in life and conflict from the perspective of compassion and shared human experience, Saul doing the best he could with what he had? I wonder if killing the messenger wasn't an act of unspeakable grief. In this context, I think David's lament makes complete sense. The President of the United States sang Amazing Grace at a dead preacher's funeral. Within 48 hours of their loved ones' deaths, speaking to the alleged killer by video feed, the family of those 9 people forgave that angry white man. They forgave because it was the only thing they could do. Nothing the justice system will do can ever take this unspeakable pain away. No retribution, no eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth kind of justice, of fairness, will ever replace what's been lost. There can only be forgiveness. Grace, if healing is to occur and life's joy is to be found again. Here's the pesky thing about grace, especially when it comes to leadership. That's what we're talking about here. It's God's gift to us, regardless of what we do. As Obama said, we don't deserve it. We can't earn it. It's just God's gift to us. And in leadership, especially when we think there's a leader in every chair, how we choose to show up makes the difference in any movement forward. Resentment, carrying the past around for the moment of retribution, is like a poison you want someone else to swallow. The only effect that poison has is on you. It's vital to sing lament. We must gather to weep, to grieve, to express the sadness of our loss. What happened, happened. The only movement forward comes from the act of grace. It is God's perpetual gift to us, always. Amazing Grace, sung by the President of the United States at a dead preacher's funeral, lived out through us in the very next breath we take. Amen. Please pray with me. Oh God, these historians laid upon us a story that speaks to us still. It speaks of your grace in the craziness of human behavior. And it calls us to be gracious. What courage it takes. So we ask that your Spirit empower us, that we might be gracious. In Jesus' name.